My name is Terry Wallace, and I'm here at the Annie Cooper Boyd House in Sag Harbor, Long Island, New York. The Annie Cooper Boyd House is home to the Sag Harbor Historical Society, and I'm here today to speak about the exhibition, which I am the guest curator of, titled The Many Aliases of Local Painting Legend, Cappy Amundsen. Cappy Amundsen is legendary in Sag Harbor, and that's why we celebrate his life this year with this exhibition. The son of a famous artist, Cappy Amundsen began his art career at the Grand Central School of Art in 1928. In 1932, he helped find the Washington Square Outdoor Art Show with William de Kooning and Jackson Pollock. Unable to make a living as an artist, Cappy became a commercial fisherman. He went to places like Provincetown and Gloucester, and there he perfected the craft of seascape painting. In 1946, he moved to Sag Harbor, Long Island. Here he became a well-known figure in the community, finding the first outdoor water festival, the Sea Scouts, community activities, and art exhibitions at Guildhall. I'd like to show you more of this exhibition. Come inside with me. One of the things we find with Cappy Amundsen's paintings is that they pretty much look similar. Here's a painting by J.J. Enright under one of his pseudonyms. You can see it's typical Amundsen style, two boats along a dock, typical reflections in the water, you know, city in the background. If we look over here to this painting, William Ward Jr., we basically see the same painting. The difference is that the scale is slightly smaller, but it has all the elements that the J.J. Enright painting has. One of the best known aliases of Cappy Amundsen is the name J.J. Enright. Amundsen painted up to 275 paintings a year for 5 or 6 years under this pseudonym. When I first started doing research on this artist, I was more interested in what I found on the back of the paintings. On the rear of the paintings, I found the inventory number, the title, signature of the artist, and a copyright stamp. As I started to develop, you know, these various names and find out who some of these authors of these painters were, I found these similarities. For other artists, William Ward Jr., F.H. McKay, W. Hughes, and other names that he used, his own name that he used, A. Emerson, Halimar, and other pseudonyms like that. One of the fascinating things about Cappy Amundsen are the numerous names that he used to put on the front of his paintings. Many of these names were created from people in the arts, or they were explorers, or they were people that he knew in town. Let's take a look at a few of them that he used. Early on, Cappy used his first name, Halimar. Eventually, he began using A. Emerson. His real name was Emerson, but he started to play around with the first initial. Then he became Halimar Amundsen. Later, he started to paint pictures and homage to those who he had respect for. One of them was H. Nansen, Norwegian explorer. J.J. Enright. The Enright name probably came from a friend of his father's named Charles Enright, who was an illustrator and who was well known in the art world. The big difference with the Enright name is that Charles Enright spelled his name E-N-W-R-I-T-E. Cappy Amundsen spelled the name E-N-W-R-I-G-H-T. Other names that Cappy used were John L. Donne. John Donne was a major literary figure in the 19th century. W. Hughes, another literary figure in Canada. And many of the W. Hughes paintings depict scenes of Northwest Territory or the Canadian provinces. Sven Sag, a very close friend, Sven Rasmussen, in Sag Harbor. The Sag is just where he is, in the old spelling of Sag Harbor. J.C. Bennett pays homage to local people in East Hampton, and William Ward Jr. William Ward Jr. happened to be an illustrator, and so Amonson pays homage to him, as well as to F.H. Mackay, a leader in the music field in the 19th century. When we take a look at Cappy Amundsen's work, and we take a look at the palette that he used over the course of his lifetime, we find that Amundsen actually used 3 or 4 different palettes. In the mature part of his life, he used this particular palette, a very light impressionist palette, a lot of yellows, a lot of oranges, a lot of whites, very strong composition. If we take a look at this particular picture, which is a seascape, and we look at other of his works, signed with other names, this one in particular, signed with the F.H.A. Mackay name, we find that although the composition is different, the artist uses the same palette. And it's not hard for us to figure out that both paintings, although they're signed with different names, come from the same hand. This painting by Cappy Amundsen is an early work dated 1936. He painted this soon after leaving New York City and going to Cape Cod after having the caricature of Adolf Hitler banned from the Metropolitan Museum. In this early work by Amonson, we see a lot of distractions in the picture. Sailboats behind the actual docks and behind the buildings and in the foreground. Amonson eventually successfully eliminated many of these distracting items, and his paintings became much simpler. And when the simplicity came through, he was able to really transverse his impressionist techniques to the public. This oil painting is painted by Cappy Amundsen, although it is signed with one of Amundsen's pseudonyms, John L. Dunn. John Dunn was a well-known writer in the early 20th century. Amundsen himself was a real intellect. He pretty much read anything he could get his hands on. If we take a look at this particular picture, we see it's in typical Amundsen style. Fishing boats along the dock, a hazy day, great reflections in the water, which shows the impressionist technique of Amundsen, with the city of Gloucester in the background, or a Rockport in the background. If we take a look at this particular painting over here by J.J. Enright, it's basically painted in the same location. We see the boats, sitting peacefully at the dock. We take a look at the reflections in the water, done in a real impressionist vein, sitting in the background. Very often what Amonson would do is he would sell his paintings to distributors. And when he thought that he was putting too many paintings out into the marketplace, he would start putting different names on them. In his mind, he thought that he would keep the prices high on his own individual work. At other times, Amonson did art shows such as the Washington Square Art Show. And he often wanted to put a group of paintings up which had different names on them. This way he could say, an Amonson painting is $100, a William Ward Jr. painting is $50, an F.H.A. Mackay is $25. And he was able to speak very freely about it and convince customers that they should buy various paintings. When Cappy Amundsen came to Sag Harbor, he fell in love with it, and he fell in love with the people in Sag Harbor. He became involved with finding the first waterfront festival in 1946. And then he helped with the LVIS And then eventually he helped set up the Marine Museum through an exhibition with Ralph Carpentier, who was a well-known local artist. In this particular painting, Amonson signs the name J.C. Bennett. This would be an homage to the people of East Hampton, Bennett being a well-known local name. But Amonson didn't stop there. Occasionally he signed his paintings J.C. Bonnick. And he spoke about this at length soon before the end of his life with Rick Murphy of the Sag Harbor Herald newspaper. And at that time he spoke about how much he loved the people of the East End of Long Island. Now, although Amonson painted under many aliases, he rarely spoke about it. People are just now finding out a secret that he's kept for his lifetime and 20 years thereafter.